VP Global Head of Engineering and Industrial Services, TCS. The topic what he will be presenting will be transforming industry and infrastructure with innovative technologies. I'll just give a small brief of his bio. Mr. Regu Ayyasamy is the Global Head of Engineering and Industrial Services, TCS, and is responsible for creating value-based solutions and services for accelerated product development and manufacturing operations management for process and discrete sectors. Mr. Regu joined TCS in 1994, has varied experience spanning 20 years in project management, competency development, customer relationship, and people management. His TCS portfolio includes regional manager in Cincinnati, USA from 1997 to 2000, and integration manager during the TCS Tata Infotech merger. I will request Mr. Regu Ayyasamy for his keynote speech.
Good morning. Morning. That's good. It's very glad to be here this morning, and we had two interesting presentations, and I think a lot of information got covered in those two presentations, providing the imperatives of what is going on in the overall manufacturing and the integration and the decision making, and how the technologies are actively playing in bringing to the level of needs and the changing environment that's happening today, which is very volatile. So I'm going to spend few minutes, and you will find perhaps a lot of this information gets replicated or emphasized again and again, but that is natural because I think in the current industry trends, what we are seeing and the technologies what we are deploying, I think the concepts that are discussed in every session are important or relevant, and it is contextually critical. So you will find that it gets kind of repeated in every session that we are going through today and maybe even tomorrow. That also perhaps tells to all of us that this particular technologies and as well as what is really happening is how they can positively enable and impact the business, and how we can all really align ourselves and find the ways to adapt or implement or absorb those technologies in our organization. So my topic which I have taken today is the transforming industry and infrastructure with innovative technologies. I will just go and cover basically three topics in this agenda today. One is transformation. When we say transforming industry in infrastructure, why do we have to transform? What are all the impediments or imperatives that are there for considering transformation at all? Is not that our current systems, processes, and setup and the infrastructure is enough to handle the business requirement, or is it something else need to be done for us to move to the next level? So that is the first topic, which is the transformation, which is need of the hour. And when we talk about transformation, do we have to transform at what level? Is it at enterprise level? Is it at the people level? It is at the shop floor level? It is at some other unit level? What is that transformation we are talking about? And what are all the technologies which are driving this transformation? So those are all the three high level which I would like to go through this session. We have 4 strong market forces that are acting today. There could be many, but this is kind of condensed into 4 buckets, I would say, or 4 areas. One is the changing markets, whether it is domestic here in India or whether it is overseas exports market or overseas companies trying to explore the domestic market. In any angle if you look, there is a tremendous amount of changing market conditions and scenarios. And second, of course, is regulations, the country regulations, industry regulations, and certifications, and now with restrictions on environment and sustainability restrictions, there are a whole lot of pressure and constraints on which an industry or a shop can operate. And of course, the third one is the consumer preferences and their awareness about the products that they are going to use, whether it is a day-to-day product for sundry functions like washing, drying, and house-related activities, or it is an electronic gadget, or any of the products that is the consumer is actually taking into the household. He has a whole lot of information, knowledge, and there is a lot of priorities that come into play for the decision making. And of course, the last one is threat by the competition, because there is always a copy, and as well as there is always substitutes, and sometimes there are a lot of fakes and spurious products in the market that is also impacting the way we play our business. So I'm just going to talk about the ever-changing markets. The two charts in the right, basically one is talking about the India GDP growth rate fluctuations, and I'm sure all of our expectation, and in the last 3 weeks many people are talking about how to further fuel the growth that has probably stalling or going down, and what are all the steps should be taken, whether it should be a big bang approach or whether it should be a incremental approach. So you might have seen many of these discussions that are happening around Prime Minister to economic advisors and all of them in the country. But the question is, if this GDP growth itself has so much of volatility, there is volatility, we see that getting translated into number of industries we all service. So be it in automotive industry, steel industry, or it could be in just food production industry. So every industry or infrastructure, we see the significant impact of, from a domestic perspective, the impact of the GDP growth on us. And especially what does it translate? What does it really mean from a day-to-day operation perspective? I think if you just take an example of an automotive industry itself, sometimes in some months suddenly the sales goes up year over year by more than 20-25%. Sometimes on some months year over year the sales is down by 3 or 4% across all the major automotive companies. So the sales cycle, even in a monthly trend, has a huge fluctuation. The demand is not consistent. Demand is not going through a steady curve. So if the demand curve is having so much of fluctuation, there are a whole lot of chain, starting from the OEM to the supplier ones, tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s sometime. And there is a complete flow down of demand fluctuations that need to happen to absorb this. So just for an example, we were talking to, being in the Tata Group, of course, so we work with many of the tier 1 suppliers as well as OEMs. And when we were talking to some of the tier 1 suppliers in Chennai and other places, by the time the forecast gets changed from OEM in terms of what model, what parts to be made, and how many have to be made, from that point onwards, down below where you will go and change a production plan in a tier 1 or a tier 2 in terms of your production rate, and also the sourcing plan for those components, the flow down, the time that takes in some companies could easily between 40 days to 60 days. So from the time somebody has changed the production rate, I want 100,000 vehicles parts so much, and now I've changed it to 60,000 because market has changed. By the time it flows down, to just effect the plan, it's not even implemented. To effect the plan, it takes 40 to 60 days in the supply chain cycle in some companies. Some are better, some are far worse than this. So if you are moving this type of market fluctuation to a system, then probably we will end up carrying inventory for 2 months that is not required, and then that is adding to the cost, and that cost cannot be passed to the OEM, and that cost cannot be passed to some other parties in the chain. So it kind of complicates the whole efficiency part of it. So if you really look at one value stream approach, because of why it happens? Because of the macroeconomics. Because GDP is fluctuating, there is no further infrastructure growth. Infrastructure growth leads to automotive growth. Automotive growth, then because of the other factors like inflation, it impacts and it varies. So this volatility which is there in the market space constitutes an important problem just for one example industry, that we just cannot react fast enough to a changing market world. We will know what the reasons are. I'm sure every one of us in this room understand those reasons, but I think that's the imperative that is happening. The second one which is here is basically the shift of the growth in the world, going from the Western world to the more emerging world like BRIC countries. This is again, it's an important message or important imperative for all of us, because in India, I think this shift can lead to a lot of market opportunities, because there are a lot of new players are coming. There is spurt of production and manufacturing that is going to happen, number one. And number two, they are looking for local partners and local people who are knowledgeable, who are capable to actually meet up with some of the demands. In fact, we work with a number of customers. We ourselves have introduced many OEMs to suppliers, for forging suppliers or sheet metal suppliers, machined 5-axis machined machining suppliers. Many people we have introduced because they want to actually make those components and other things out of India, which means in the Indian manufacturing needs to have the quality, certifications, and the ability to communicate collaboratively with global players and be responsive, that from the time an order is placed, how I can deliver in the quickest possible time. So all that needs, in order to meet this shift, there is a required qualification improvement. We talked about how Indian manufacturing lagged compared to other countries. There is a shift that has to happen from the Indian manufacturing industry to upgrade their technology, upgrade their infrastructure, upgrade their learning, because then we are in a better position to address. So even if you take automotive industry as a simple example, their production capacity itself around 40–50% or sometimes 30% is actually made for export purposes. They are Renault, Nissan, or Maruti, or any of them are making cars that are actually getting exported. So there is a huge market that they are served because of the capacity or capability that comes from the Indian context. I think all of these are important from the perspective, if we want to really catch up that opportunity, it needs that we have to have the systems, we have to have the ability to meet up the quality and the technology requirements so that we can respond to all these opportunities that are there. I'm going to just skip this slide quickly for one of time, but basically this also says it is an investor view that if an investor has put money on a company, he looks for return on his investment in those companies, but looking by the way stock market is behaving, the investor's preference may tend to go to other metals and other precious metals like gold, which is showing a high degree of steady growth actually, if you say in the left chart. So whereas in the stock market is going through huge amount of volatility and variation. So again, if we are able to translate our business into a sustainable growth, which is what other speakers have talked about, both Pankit and Andy, I think that is going to yield into the better performance of the stock market and return to the shareholders. And that also will yield to more investment in the company for further growth. So coming into regulations, I think we find that there is whole lot of, there are some industries listed, some industries not listed here, but you will find there is huge amount of regulations that are coming in the market for every industry. I'm just putting some few examples. The one that is put is more from FDA regulations for the pharma and the medical devices industry in India. You have seen number of cases and verdicts on that for contract manufacturing in India in terms of not meeting some of the FDA requirements, and if there are any violations of that. So there are CFR Part 11, serialization is happening, which is another, I would say, is going to demand high amount of technology absorption to implement serialization. So basically serialization provides at the level of from the all the way to pharma manufacturer to the pharmacist that distributes and then retails it, and then all the way down to the consumer. He will be able to connect back to the centralized database and assess that this particular product with this serial number is in fact manufactured by the concerned company, and it is the right ingredients, whatever is reported. And so there is a continuous process of validation, not just at the manufacturing plant level, right at the user level. Suppose if you buy a antibiotic from the retail store and you take the serial number, and if you just put the serial number and send an SMS, it should get a confirmation back that this is all the parent company, these are all the ingredients, this is what it is, your purchase is validated. So that is the level of data synchronization that would be required to implement this regulation called serialization. Then the 22,000 ISO is for food-related, food safety and food-related. There are other regulations that are there in industries like automotive. We have how much of the components we use in the automotive manufacture needs to be recyclable. For example, advanced countries have these regulations like 95% of the component that go into a car should be recyclable. So you should trace back all the way to the foam in the seat and find out who manufactured it and who has done it and what year, whether it is recyclable material, and validate that. And I'm sure such regulations will be adopted by India also soon, because as we go into more and more environment conscious regulations, these regulations will get adopted in developed countries as well. So that needs for the ability to track, trace, and execute. The next one, of course, is the consumer behavior. Consumers' knowledge has become very high because of the way they use internet and other things. And then their preference also is shifting, because people are asking, what is the ingredients you have? Does it have egg? This is a vegan product, and I don't want any fat, saturated fat in this. What kind of dietary information that are there? So the whole lot of things, the consumer is putting pressure on the products, on the different things we are putting. And again, customization has started happening across different industries. We have seen that also. If I am buying as simple item like a laptop, I want to configure all of that in the way I want it, from the hard disk to memory to different things. But the assembly will happen almost like a line assembly in the in the workshop. How do I really manage customization and a fast line assembly manufacturing are two opposing paradigms in the industry. But if you have systems in place, that also can be managed. So I think those are all the customer-related imperatives that are coming in the industry. And the third, of course, is the counterfeits and competition bringing counterfeit drugs, as well as in the industry also is completely, in most of the stores, in retail stores, and if you go into rural areas, they sell Pepsi or Miranda or any of those drinks if you buy, it's very hard to determine whether it's genuine because it just doesn't taste the way it normally tastes when you buy it from a recognized store. So there is a lot of spurious as well as counterfeit things are there, and how do we manage, how do we track, how do we find those things and into the, so ability to meet the unexpected is one of the. So those are all the 4 parameters which we looked at from the perspective of threats from all the areas we mentioned. So if we really look at converting this threat into what is that we need to do from an organizational perspective, so it needs, of course, for meeting the speed to the market, we discussed that case study a lot. Value chain visibility and tracing, right from the way it is conceived all the way to delivery. Regulatory requirements, how do we meet? Pankit talked about OE, operational excellence, a lot. It is definitely, it is required. And the products that are tailored to each of the customer needs. So today, if you really look at in most companies, and I'm sure many of them are getting to an advanced stage. So this is just a depiction of a typical industry, how it operates. And I'm sure you can take a view of your own company or your own industries to find out where that is stand. You will find that today in the value stream or value chain, all the way from suppliers to the end customers, we have the manufacturing, which is in the core of the plant, which is in the core of this diagram, connecting to the R&D and corporate for product information or recipe information and all of the ingredient information, to all the way to here the manufacturing sub-departments, whether it is planning, execution, and management of the actual delivery. The biggest problem is many of these are having systems. It's not that many of them are not having systems. There are very good systems that are available, IT systems, and some of them using latest technologies. But many times we find that they do not have interlinked or integrated intelligence. For example, planning system will have the planning related all the information and decides on what they have, while execution system will have separately, and it never, there are points of integration would be missing. Similarly from R&D. For example, a product change would have happened because of warranty or because of some other issue, but it would not have flown down through the chain very quickly enough to impact how the manufacturing or sourcing has to be affected, how it should be changed. Because it's all not connected, it's very disconnected. And sometimes if the systems are done very well, we would be able to even go ahead and find some certain changes in the components and even forecast that an impending change is, I'm going to change the mirror design. There is an impending change coming. Then the supplier will be able to actually react to it in a much more positive manner than after going and say, I've changed it, now you have to incorporate it. So today I think when we talked about all the 4 areas, Andy talked about whether it is social, mobility, big data, all of that, I think when we bring any of those technologies and look at it from the perspective of integrating, I think while it is integrating, then only you will make best value out of all the technologies that we can adapt. Similarly, it goes for the recipe management, manufacturing intelligence, and visibility of the suppliers and distributors. And those, if we look at those challenges, then the implication that it needs to address is the agile demand-driven supply chain, cost of production, and end-to-end product traceability. So, so what does it call for? Suppose if we all look at standing, okay, we understood this, these imperatives are known, the current structure of the organization is known, the technology we have implemented is very well understood. So what do we want to do from moving from this point, current status, from A to B. What is that we needed? And I think that is the core objective of this discussion, which is transformation. So what do we need to transform from A to the point B? I think there are 4 things that are listed there, more from the summary perspective. Enterprise manufacturing intelligence that is able to provide the right level of alerts, dashboards, and role-based portals. Second one, integrated process functions and technologies. I think it's a core thing that is definitely we need whenever if it is weaker, or sometimes people say the integration is existing, but it will not really deliver the business requirement. It may do only a point requirement. So it has to be a truly integrated process across function and technologies. And next generation plant infrastructure. In order for us to build 1 and 2, that is manufacturing intelligence and process functions, we need the right kind of infrastructure to support it. Otherwise, you can't build 1 and 2 very well actually. So the infrastructure could be you are doing some diagnostics, you are doing some real-time measurements, you are doing some sensors, you are doing some advanced process control, whatever type of things that is needed in order to build the better intelligence. So if you really find today, one of the examples in Tamil Nadu we are going through right now is in the power sector. We talked in the morning about power sector. Suddenly in the last 3 or 4 weeks, there is a huge surge in the power production because of windmills. And roughly around 3,000 megawatt worth of wind power is getting generated in the last 4 or 5 weeks continuously from the various wind farms that are there in the state. But the issue is, week after week, the fluctuation of the power is very high. Sometimes it will be like 2,000 megawatt, next time it is 2,900, again it will be 3,200 megawatt, again it will be 2,500. So the fluctuation is so high because wind power is not, it's not like the thermal or other source of power. So with that type of power situation, how do we manage the demand supply curve? How do we manage the grid and the frequency? Is the biggest challenge, and we have the power that is on 2 months back. If anyone would have asked what is the power situation, it was horrible, and we had power cuts even in Chennai running for 4 hours. But today, because of the wind power, there is a change. But we don't have system to receive that power and manage it properly with whichever industry needs on priority. How do I actually control it, and how do I manage this? Can I sell it off to some other state and receive the power later at no barter deal? It's just not there. We don't have the management which is good enough. It may be there, I'm not saying that nothing is there, but there are systems, but it's not to the level that is required, which is pushed by just the way the industry is putting the demand supply management demands. So I think that is where the plant infrastructure, the devices you have to measure and manage need to take care of such fluctuation. If it is not there, we can't really do any. After the event has occurred, it is extremely difficult to find a way to implement this. So when we plan itself, we need to have the smart devices installed at each equipment level or process level, so that we can build the intelligence to the top level enterprise as well as to the plant. So I'm just going to skip this slide quickly. So this is a known slide and it was explained a lot. Going from the shop floor control, from the plant data to the production, MES, LIMS and all those systems, to cloud computing, big data, mobility, and energy management across ERP and supply chain management system. Those are all the technologies that are driving this transformation cycle. The 4 that I told earlier gets translated into individual elements, further drilling down on technology, IT technology, service-oriented architecture, and production batch management, things like that. This is one case study we captured from one of the customer who is implementing. Is a large consumer process goods manufacturer. And one of the fundamental thing they are doing is to build the foundation. I think it's more important is to build the foundation by work process standardization, integration, and the platform standardization. Once the foundation is made, you are able to get very good breakthrough capabilities, whether it is intelligence, whether it is performance improvement, or modeling and simulating what will happen if I change my